In the last episode, we made our way from Antietam National Battlefield down to Virginia into Shenandoah National Park, and we set up the Scamp at our campsite in Loft Mountain. This was our time to kind of figure out some things with the Scamp. We set up our solar panels for the first time. We put water in our tanks for the first time, and I cooked inside the Scamp, so we were getting a little bit more comfortable. We talked to the ranger about a bear in the area that was becoming a problem because people were not careful enough with getting rid of their food scraps. And then we got ready to take our first hike in Shenandoah, the Frazier Discovery Trail. Does it say how long it is? A 1.2 mile circuit. Yeah. About 1 hour. Yeah. The Frazier Discovery Trail goes out from the wayside right at the bottom of Loft Mountain. We just went right across the street to the trailhead and then headed up. This is a great hike for beginners because it's not very long. It's a loop that goes up to a very nice view and then heads back down. The trail's a little bit rocky in certain places, but very manageable.
Oh boy.
We spent a few minutes at the top soaking in the views that Shenandoah is so famous for, but then we headed back down because we had some plans for the afternoon. We were going to drive down south to Monticello, which is Thomas Jefferson's estate. We had purchased the VIP tickets to have a behind-the-scenes tour of his home. We're definitely getting our use out of the stove on this trip. Making coffee, eating snacks before we go in. I'm using that little strainer that I got for Puerto Rico. I didn't feel like bringing the whole French press.
No bear bell.
I took off the bear bell. We're in civilization. As you come up from the parking lot, there's a large visitor center. We picked up our tickets, which we had purchased online, and then got onto the shuttle, which takes you up to the mountaintop. But we definitely could have walked it. It really wasn't that far.
Check out the gardens.
Yeah, we won't be able to see them after. We started out exploring the grounds of Monticello, and these are really just as interesting as the house. And the nice thing is that you can actually take pictures outside. But though they hold it until you're done.
I wonder if they do. Good question.
It is Virginia. I mean, you gotta figure some people are probably armed.
Yeah, they forget. A lot of times people just forget.
Along the side of the house is an area named Mulberry Row, and this part of the property has the buildings that housed the enslaved families that worked for Jefferson. Now, as the pamphlet states, Monticello is really a paradox that contains this contrast of a person who has these ideals of liberty and freedom, yet has families of enslaved people working and living on his property. Behind Mulberry Row is the garden area of the property, and it's just so well laid out. And it was interesting to find out that later on, when we went down to the main entrance, there's a cafe down there, and the cafe actually uses things from the garden in a lot of the things that they cook. So it's about the closest farm to table that you could get. Really cool that you can eat things that were grown right here on the property.
It's always funny how their houses are like working businesses.
Yeah, everything had a purpose.
Yeah.
So then we checked out the basement area that goes around the side of the house. This is just an open exhibit, and you're still allowed to take pictures here. But as we got ready to go wait in line for our tour of the house, they made it very, very clear that there's absolutely no photography allowed inside, because a lot of the things that are in the house are actually on loan from private collections or museums, so they don't have the photography rights to them. So I'm going to get through this section by showing you guys a little bit of pictures from the brochure to kind of give you an idea of what we got to see. So we were with a group, and this was the VIP tour. We paid a little bit extra so that we could see the second floor, which you usually don't get to see when you go into the house. But I think the most interesting room for me was right when you go through these doors, right past the pillars, is the main entry to the house. And this was where a lot of people sat and waited for Jefferson if they wanted to talk to him. And this is where his clock was located. And he had a very precise clock for that period of time. And when we went down into the basement, you can actually see the cannonballs that are used to show the days of the week and the time. But then we finally made it into the dome, and we were told that this was the room we were allowed to take pictures in because there are no artifacts in here, and everybody pulled out their cameras and started going crazy.
Send up a swallow towards the oculus, and the oculus means eye in Latin, E-Y-E. That is 49 pounds of glass. Good grief. Yeah, and Jefferson had the worst of times getting an oculus here that didn't shatter. On 3 different occasions, the oculus arrived, but we got the glass from a company in Austria.
Really? So that's not the original?
No, that's not.
So what would have happened with 49 pounds of glass? What would have happened? So for Jefferson, it was never an opening? It was always covered with tarp or something?
Always covered with tarp or something. Like here in the center, I talked about Jefferson's sea view. As he to be a 40-mile elevation rising, but no hills or mountains from here to Tennessee. On this side,
we were just amazed by the incredible amount of knowledge that our tour guide had. The people who lead the tours study for a very long time before they are qualified to take the group through the house. And they really just have an incredible depth of knowledge, and our guide was able to answer all sorts of really specific questions and had so many interesting stories about the house. It made something that might not have been as interesting to me turn into something that was actually a really fascinating experience. Being able to stand in the famous dome room would have made the VIP tickets worth it just for this experience, but in a moment, the guide opened up these beautiful doors on the opposite side of the dome room, and inside is this secret little room that he said a lot of the children liked to play and spend time in there because it was like their own secret area of the house. And I could just imagine if I was a kid, I would definitely hang out there. It was the original tiny house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, everybody's lived in one at some point.
Mm-hmm. After we finished the house tour, there was one more thing on the property that we wanted to see before everything closed down, and that was Jefferson's grave site. So we decided not to take the tram back down to the visitor center. Instead, we walked past the house and down Mulberry Lane and followed the path around that leads to the other side of the property where Jefferson's grave is located.
I think we have to get the bulk of it, you know, the tour and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, the names are confusing.
Yeah, well, they kept naming people after other people,
yeah.
So then the names get more confusing generation by generation.
They change it because they're mad at somebody. Yeah. I don't know.
Didn't make it easy for us in history class. Yeah. The property actually has a pretty extensive network of walking paths that would be really nice to enjoy. If we had more time in the day, I would have liked to have spent more time walking around and enjoying the mountaintop area. But we had just enough time to make it through to Jefferson's grave before they closed. Jefferson wanted his gravestone to reflect the 3 accomplishments that he was the most proud of from his life. Being the author of the Declaration of Independence, writing the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedoms, and being the father of the University of Virginia. These represented his ideals of freedom, education, and the separation between church and state. And I know that I am very thankful for his work on all 3 of those topics.
After you get done the tour, whenever you get done, you should probably just right from his grave site, you can walk 10 minutes back to the visitor center. So
Nice little trail. He said it's 10 minutes.
All worth it, you know, something different.
Instead of taking the shuttle bus, get to see the woods of Monticello.
It's right here. We're already there.
Oh, we're there. Yeah, the boots were pretty cool.
You can place it.
When we got back down to the Welcome Center, we decided to make a quick stop at the cafe there. It was still open, and we felt like since we were there, we had to try something that they made using the fresh produce that they grew right there on the grounds. And then we started the drive back to Shenandoah.